Hey, you know those scene lights we installed on the van last weekend?
Yeah, what about them?
I think something's wrong. You're gonna want to come check this out. All right, you ready?
I think so. Whoa, what the heck was that?
So I think it's scene kits.
Scene kits?
You know, like the post-emo hipster predecessors of the early 2000s.
Oh, so you mean like you back then?
No. Anyways, I think we should call these porch lights instead. Yeah, definitely going with porch lights. What is up, my dudes and dudettes? We are back. Behind that camera is Colleen and I am Todd. And if you are new to this channel, we make pretty ridiculous YouTube videos of us converting this 2022 Sprinter cargo van that you see behind me here into the ultimate adventure vehicle on wheels. Today we are installing porch lights. These mount up high on the sides of the vehicle and illuminate that space surrounding. This is great for when you're at your campsite, or if you're driving down a dark road, you can turn those on to illuminate the sides of the vehicle. We couldn't decide which one of these we wanted to install, so we ended up ordering 3 different types, and we're gonna go ahead and cover the pros and cons of each as quickly as humanly possible, starting now. This first one is from Super Bright LEDs. It puts out 630 lumens. It has a viewing angle of 90 degrees and 90 degrees in the horizontal and vertical direction. It only costs $17, which is great. And it also has the nicest light color output out of any of the options we tested at 4000 Kelvin, which is just a beautiful, nice, natural, warm white light. The only problem with this, and the reason why it didn't get installed on our van today, is because, well, it's freaking huge as hell. It sticks out more than any of the other options we tested, and it just didn't go with the design aesthetic that we were looking for on the exterior of the van. Next up is the Amazon Special. This is almost a direct replica of the light we ended up going with. It's got the same viewing angle, 69 in the vertical, 65 in the horizontal. It puts out 800 lumens. The light is a little bit wider at 6300 Kelvin. And the only reason why this didn't go on our vehicle is because it definitely feels a lot cheaper. The casting is not as nice, the coating is not as nice, and this reflector on the front looks like it was stolen from a bicycle pedal at Walmart. But at $17, this is a great budget-friendly option. It's really low profile, and it literally is an exact replica of the light we ended up going with. The one we ended up going with is the cream of the crop, top of the line, the rigid scene light. It comes in at $117, but outputs 1100 lumens at that price and only draws 0.75 amps, which is crazy. It's the most efficient out of all the options that we tested. And it actually just feels like a really nice, high quality light. And so this is the one that we ended up going with. There is one more honorable mention that I thought I would talk about, which is the Rock 9 light. It comes in at about $45 plus another 5 to 10 for the 30-degree angled block that you need to point it down. It definitely puts out the lowest amount at 325 lumens, but it's really low profile and it looks really nice, so I thought I'd mention that. Anyways, that was a ton of words in a little amount of time. I am tired of talking. Let's get into it. Oh, hello friends. Thanks for taking the time to reflect with me on how I made this template. For this particular template, I actually used this body line right here for the hard stop in this direction, and then this body line across the top for the clocking and the Y direction. The nice thing about using this particular body line is that the cavity on the inside goes all the way until you hit that body panel brake, which acts as a nice hard stop from the inside. And you can see the original position for the light that I had was right here. That was me just filling on the inside before I actually templated this line. And so after I templated that line, I was able to conservatively move this back about 3/4 of an inch. So this is the position we'll end up going with. So you know the drill, let's make some holes. Once I triple confirmed that I wasn't going to drill into that inner support with my preferred light position, I taped the template in place and then took a step back to make sure everything looks straight. Any Zoolander fans out there? Anyways, after everything was lined up, I made tape traps for both the inside and the outside of the van. To make sure we kept accurate hole locations, I first used a center punch to slightly divot the metal in the center of each template hole. Now that we center punched, we're going to go ahead and drill our pilot hole using one of these guys. This is called a center drill. These have shown up on my channel before, and I highly recommend using these if you're going to be drilling a pilot hole in sheet metal. The short stubby design as well as the flat tip prevents any drill wandering, and it's just a great tool to have in your toolbox. I'll go ahead and put the link in the description below. So I ended up center drilling straight through the template, but honestly it makes more sense to remove this prior to this step. Once I had a pilot hole, I came back and drilled to size with a K-letter bit as recommended by Rigid. I like using cobalt bits and I go very slow, especially near the end, because sheet metal will tend to grab and pull the bit inward. All right, now that we drilled those holes, we probably have a little bit of burrs around the edges. We're gonna go ahead and take care of those. Our favorite tool is this little guy right here. This is called a chamfer bit. And if you use one of these, we like to refer to you as a chamfrian.
The chamfrians, my friend, and we'll Debur each hole in our van. We are the chamfrians, we are the chamfrians. Let's make those edges smoother, 'cause we are the chamfrians of the world.
Well, some ideas are better on paper. Anyways, for the backside of holes I couldn't chamfer, I used a deburring tool. I then put down some paint to protect the exposed metal edges. Our preferred rust preventative paint is the Rust Bullet. Don't forget to coat the inside edges too. Next step was to clean the area, starting with removing the tape trap. Look at that haul. I then like to use a clay bar to remove contaminants, followed by an automotive degreaser. Now the bolts supplied with the rigid light were a little bit too long, so I had to cut them down. To get this length, I actually dry fit the light on the side of the van and marked it where it came through on the inside. I then simply added the additional length of the washer and the nut. Now that that paint has had a chance to dry, we're going to go ahead and put these puppies on with 3M08019 marine grade silicone sealant. You can probably use any silicone RTV here, but we like the marine grade stuff because frankly, it just sounds like it's a lot cooler. We're going to go ahead and put some around the exterior here, fasten it on with the fasteners, and then clean up any excess squeeze out that might occur. Let's go ahead and get that done. Like I said, I'm just going to go around the perimeter here, and then I'm also going to backfill these areas right here because these little tabs are meant to be broken off for the cable. I really didn't use much RTV here and simply put a small bead around the exterior and filled the side exit tabs. My thought process is that I only need to prevent water from getting behind the light face. This next part is way easier with help from a friend, but manageable with one ambidextrous person. With our mounting position, you can really only access the most forward nut and washer easily, so I put that on first and tightened it up before moving on to the other one that requires a bit more skill and creativity to put on. After everything is tightened up, the silicone sealant will squeeze out a bit around the perimeter of the light. I used a clean shop rag and a little isopropyl alcohol to clean things up and make a nice smooth fillet around the entirety of the light. It is time for a Todd tip.
It's a top tip.
Now this rear nut can be extremely difficult to get on, especially if, like us, you want to position the porch light as back as far as possible. So what I did to make this work was use an open-ended box wrench and some tape to attach the nut to it and slide it back here and get it into place. Now you want to make sure you use the open end and not the closed end, because I found out the hard way you can get it on with the closed end, but then you cannot get the wrench back out. You want to slide the bolt out, put this into position, and then slowly tighten the bolt until it catches, and then you'll just be able to pull the tape off the nut when you're done. I hope this helps. I also did put a little silicone sealant around the cable entry to seal things up and prevent rubbing. If you follow our channel, then you probably noticed that one of the key pillars of our build is serviceability. For this install, we went with Deutsch DT 2-pin connectors that are great field wireable IP68 13 amp rated automotive connectors. I'm still using my modified crimper from the audio install video, but I found another one that's relatively cheap that I'll link below. I really like these connectors. They are easy to assemble and pretty small for their amp rating. They also have these little mounting brackets that you can buy to keep everything nice and tidy. For the rear porch light, it's mostly rinse and repeat with a few key differences. I made another template following similar body lines and attached it to the side of the van. For the position of the light, I used the body line from the flare as a guide and a ruler to make sure it was the same height as the front light. We have the acoustic package on our van, and the pre-applied sound deadener was right in the way. Fortunately, as found out on our Max Fan video, it comes off pretty easy with a little heat and a paint scraper. And that's about it for the only major differences between the front and the back for us. The rest of the process followed the exact same steps. I will say the back is overall a bit easier though. There's a lot less stuff in the way, and it's easier to reach around from both sides for attaching the washers and the nuts. One more point here, wherever you decide to mount the light in the rear, make sure you open up the slider door to verify you won't block it when it's open. And lastly, we replaced the sound deadener where it was removed. One of the nice things here for the Sprinter is if you're putting porch lights on both sides of the vehicle like us, you only have to make one set of templates. Because it's a mirror image, all you have to do is flip it around and it works on the other side. Now, mounting porch lights on both sides of the van may not be a necessity. However, we found from past experiences overlanding, it's always nice to be able to illuminate your entire surroundings. All right, let's go ahead and plan out what we're gonna do here. We have 4 lights, one on each corner of the van, and we want to wire these in parallel. So the plan is we're actually going to wire these 2 on each side together with a continuous run down each side of the van. Red is positive, black is negative, like that. And then we're going to use taps to actually bridge these across the van like so. And then one more tap that will happen right here. And this pigtail will go down into our electrical cabinet. So we'll have a tap here, a tap here, a tap here. And we're going to be using 14 gauge wire, marine grade. To get an idea for the correct wire length, I first installed 2 14 gauge stranded and tinned copper wires into one of the DT plug receptacles. I then ran the wires along the path I was planning, 2 parallel runs connecting both the front and rear lights on both sides of the van. I add about a foot or so extra just to be sure, and then cut and cover them in braided PET sleeving. Oh hi! Shrink tubing on each end ensures the braided sleeve doesn't unravel, and then I fed the wrapped wires along the planned route. So here's where we're going to put the tap that goes from the driver's side to the passenger side. This wire is the one that goes across the roof to the passenger side. And I've gone ahead and marked where I'm going to cut out this braided sleeving. And then I'll put a piece of shrink tube on either side and then tap in with the posi taps right here. It's our proposition that you should pre-position the shrink tubing and then use a small set of scissors to trim out the middle section. There are a lot of different wire taps and wire solutions out there, but after extensive research, the ones we settled on were the posi taps. I am a believer now. These things are a bit spendy, but so easy to use and so great. I see a lot of Wago used in vans, and while I'm a Wago fanboy myself, it ends up being a little bit messy to have splice wires like that, so I much prefer to have the taps here. Some shrink tube and a nice shrink label from our Brady M210, and we are Gucci. Here is the semi-final run. More on that in just a minute. Our white wire comes down to our electrical panel, which will be over the rear wheel well, and then goes up the back side of the C-pillar, in which there's an opening you can snake a wire through here. That wire run continues up to our first set of posi taps, supplying power to that line that runs continuous from the rear of the van to the front on the driver's side by going up and over the roof rib here. I didn't want to put another hole in the C-pillar just yet. The nice thing is this uses the factory square holes that the wire ducting for the factory harness used to attach to. We put these little grommets inside to protect the wires, and then the cable run continues all the way to the front of the van, following our factory rewiring. And then if we come back behind the C-pillar, there's another tap that goes up and across. We are using our little wing zip ties to hold the cable here, and that goes down to our last set of posi taps. These feed power to a similar run to that of the driver's side, running continuous from back to front. It's a little different over the slider door. As we went up into the roof ribs, anywhere we did cross, we put a piece of trim lock to protect the wires. I'm still debating putting some hush tape here to hold it up and out of the way a little further, but I'll likely wait until insulation goes in. Then it continues forward where it mounts to another one of our edge clipped zip tie mounts, followed by a couple more down the edge of the body panel here to the front light. All right, so we just finished the wiring. It looks great, it works great, but we noticed one small problem. Actually, it's not a problem. It's just something that we want to do differently. And of course, I had to wait until we are done to figure this out. Anyways, I was testing the circuits with this guy. This is great, by the way. It's a little 12-volt power supply, which makes it really nice and easy for testing your 12-volt circuits before you get your battery bank installed. And I was thinking to myself, dang, it would be really nice to be able to turn on the left side and the right side porch lights independently of one another. The way it's wired now, that is not possible, but we can go ahead and make a really quick, easy change. All we need to do is remove this tap and drop these lines down to our battery bank as well. So let's go ahead and make that change and then call this project done. The nice thing about these posi taps is they leave a little hole when you remove them. There's no damage to the wires, so I'm just going to cover this with shrink tubing. And then I undid what I just did and pulled out the wire that bridged the two light runs on either side of the van. I then reattached a longer set of wires using the wing zip ties from the wire rerouting video into the holes along the roof brace. So now we have two sets of wires, where one goes to the passenger side of the van straight up and across the top, and one goes to the driver's side of the van. Well, my friends, that wraps up another video in the Adventure Van Build series. I would rate this project beginner DIY friendly. You need no specialty tools. In fact, you should have all of these if you're already converting a van. The cost can be under $100 if you use one of our budget-friendly options, and you should expect about 2 to 3 hours from start to finish, plus the amount of time it takes for the paint to dry to complete this project. We hope you enjoy what we are doing. If you do, please give us a thumbs up on this video. It really helps us out. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comments section below. And as always, on your way down there, don't forget to slap that subscribe button. We will see you next time. and illuminate that space. Illuminati. That's converting this 2022 Sprinter. I think I said converting.